Hello there. My challenge today is to explain to you Orton-Gillingham in 10 minutes or less. For those of you who don't know, my name is Faye Bankler-Cassell. I am a certified academic language therapist, a dyslexia therapist, and your home reading coach. And this is my channel, Teach My Child to Read. Orton-Gillingham is the tried and true, proven, decades of research method way of teaching kids with dyslexia. You'll hear it called OG for short. And I'm just going to put a link. This is an unbound copy, but I'm going to put a link to my dyslexia roadmap for families in the description because that really goes over who the providers are. Today we're focusing in strictly on Orton-Gillingham. So now I'm going to switch the verbiage a little to structured literacy. And that is because the International Dyslexia Association, not too long ago, decided to make a bigger umbrella term that incorporates Orton-Gillingham, but is not unique to people with dyslexia. So Orton-Gillingham falls under that umbrella. Orton-Gillingham and structured literacy are methods. They are not a curriculum that you can purchase and download. There are multiple curricula that meet the qualifications of structured literacy. And part of what we're going to do today is give you things to ask to see if your child is getting structured literacy. There are multiple components to structured literacy. One of the most important components is that it needs to be explicit. When I say explicit, I mean leave nothing to chance. If you think about when you listen to music and it's got the E for explicit rating, that means that they're really not leaving it up to the imagination. I'm going to give you some examples. If we're working on this sound, then I'm going to have them look at what their mouth is doing. Their mouth is closing at the lips, right? So the sound is blocked or partially blocked by either the tongue, teeth, or lips. That means it's a consonant sound. And then the next step is I'm connecting that sound to a symbol. They correspond, in this case, with the letter P. Let's say I look at my mouth, I see that I have a little grin going, and my mouth is open. I feel my vocal cords, they're vibrating. Sounds where your mouth is open and your vocal cords are vibrating are vowel sounds. Sounds that are consonants close the mouth or block it partially by the tongue, teeth, or lips. And they can either be voiced, where you feel the vocal cords moving, or they can be unvoiced, where your vocal cords aren't vibrating, like P is unvoiced. That begins a very explicit instruction that then gets tied to the letters and builds from there. The next component is that the instruction is systematic and it's cumulative. There is a plan that goes in logical order, starting from the most foundational concepts and working up in complexity. Additionally, it's cumulative. It gives you lots of chances for practice while it's building into bigger concepts. Here's an example. So the concept of accents. Every word has an accented syllable. An accent, when I'm speaking, is where the emphasis is. So an accent is when my mouth opens wider, my voice goes higher and louder. If I practice with the kids, I might practice accenting the first syllable by doing this. A, B, C, D, E, F. So using the letters as if they're syllables, And then I might flip the accent so they can practice accenting the second syllable. A, B, C, D, E, F. Why is that important? It's important for multiple reasons. One reason being that our vowels, the way we read them, pronounce them, changes sometimes in an unaccented syllable. The other reason that we want to get them comfortable with accents is in English, we have a system where sometimes the same word can have a completely different meaning based on how the syllables are accented. One example is that I'm nervous to go to the hospital because I don't want to contract any illnesses. In that case, contract means to acquire a bug, a germ. But if I'm an engineer, I might sign a contract with you to build your house. In that case, the contract is this legal binding agreement that we're going to sign, spelled exactly the same way. Only thing that's changed is the accent has moved syllables. We are about to dive into my favorite component of what makes structured literacy special, and that is multisensory teaching. Multisensory teaching is such an important factor for our Orton-Gillingham approach. Dyslexia is an experience where the brain is processing information for reading in less efficient ways than would be a typical reader. You have all these parts of the brain firing up in reading in a typical reader, and it's not as activated for dyslexic learners. So multisensory learning activates multiple parts of the brain. And what it can do when you're with a qualified dyslexia therapist is put down new neural pathways in the brain so that the dyslexic brain, it grows, it changes. So let me give you examples of multisensory learning. So we have our different senses. We have our sight, we have our hearing, we have taste, touch, smell, and then we have movement, kinesthetic. With multisensory instruction, we are trying to bring in the same information through various sensory pathways. One of the ways I think is helpful to think about multisensory learning is that Velcro target that you could hang on the wall with these sort of Velcro covered ping pong balls. And when you throw it, it sticks, right? It just sticks to it. So that's how I think of multisensory teaching and learning is we are giving ways of instruction and neural pathways in so that this information can stick to this brain. Here's an example. I showed you earlier about how we distinguish the consonants from the vowels. There's a multisensory component of that. The children are looking at their mouths, they're hearing the sounds, they're observing the movements, and then when I give them the definition of what a consonant is or what a vowel is, I use hand signals. I love to do these with kids with dyslexia. Here's how we explain consonants when I'm working with a kid. Consonants close the mouth, and the sound is blocked or partially blocked by the tongue, teeth, or lips. And you'll see kids later on when I'm asking them something about, is that a consonant? And you'll see them go like, that is the way they got the information in. They're double checking that their mouth is closing. Consonants close the mouth. And the sound is blocked or partially blocked by the tongue, teeth, or lips. I've got lots of other fun multisensory tricks for teaching kids. So come on back another time when I do multisensory videos and just hit the alert button so you can find out when that is. Another important component of this approach is that it needs to be diagnostic. I'm not talking about putting labels on kids. I'm talking about ongoing assessment that allows me to adapt my instruction so that it's responsive to the child. I'm constantly doing fluency checks, reading checks, spelling checks throughout instruction. The final piece of our method is that it's comprehensive. So if your child's just working on reading and spelling, otherwise known as decoding and encoding, that is not a robust instruction. We want fluency, grammar, vocabulary, morphology. We want syntax, phonology, written expression, reading comprehension, the whole works. And if I lost you there for a minute, again, come on back because I'll do a deeper dive another time. The way that you can feel that out when you're planning for your child's instruction is you can ask about the curriculum that's being used. What are the specific components of literacy you're going to be working on? You'll hear reading, you'll hear spelling, hopefully you'll hear handwriting and fluency, written expression, all the different components. I will dive into those in a later video, but I wanted to give you a quick overview of Orton-Gillingham structured literacy and ask you, please, if this was helpful, go ahead and hit subscribe and let me know in the comments which topics you want the next video to be on. Thanks so much. It's great to see you.